Wanted to talk Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund 5-1 winners against Hannover at the weekend. They are top of the table, 6 points clear of Bayern. We're joined by Rob Daly, commentator, presenter, who covers lots of Bundesliga games. Evening, Rob.
Evening. I haven't got a whiskey or a fireplace, but I've got hot water and lemon. Pat's outdone me, I think.
Listen, it's Pat Nevin. He outdoes us all.
Hey. He's the Don.
He really is. He really is. Yeah. So, Dortmund then. They're going very, very well. They're 6 points clear. Bayern have had a pretty impressive few years, obviously, and years of dominance. So, what is it? 11 and 12 was the last time Dortmund won. When they won 2 in a row under Klopp. 6 points clear. They've reached 48 points in record short time and seem to be closing in on a Bundesliga title. Will they do it?
I think so, actually. There is a long way to go. You know, they've played 19 of the 34 games this season, but they have scored 50 goals in that time. They haven't really had a blip like Bayern had. Bayern had a relatively good start to the season, won their first 4 league games, have won their most recent 7. They had a sort of mid-season blip where they lost to the likes of Hertha and Gladbach and Dortmund, drew home games with Freiburg and others that they really should have beaten. Fortuna Düsseldorf, a famous game where they were 3-1 up and drew 3-3. I just think Dortmund have got the swagger and the confidence to do it. And my one caveat is that Marco Reus has to stay fit, because there are many elements to Marco Reus being a key component of Dortmund's team. It isn't just his goals, it isn't just the way he creates, but the general aura he gives off and the leadership quality he has now as captain of Borussia Dortmund, that if he stays fit, I'm sure they'll win the title.
And he's linking up again with Mario Götze quite well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're very good friends. Him and Mario Götze, a pairing that was broken up when Götze controversially moved to Bayern under Pep Guardiola. Didn't really happen for him there. He's had his illness issues as well, which has stopped him playing as much as he would have liked. They both scored in a game for the first time together in 6 years or something at the weekend in that 5-1 win over Hannover. And I was at Dortmund, Gladbach just before the winter break, end of December, and Götze came on, played as a, let's call it false 9, a centre forward, and it was fantastic. The understanding between the pair's good. They've known each other such a long time. Götze hasn't turned into the player we thought he would. Granted, he scored a winner in a World Cup final. That's not bad going. Yeah. But he hasn't become the poster boy for German football that everybody thought. So it's nice to see him back amongst the goals and looking sharp again.
Dortmund seems, in the face of it, to be a very well-run club, and the atmosphere in the stadium's extraordinary, and the line of managers they seem to have produced who have made their way either to England, like we're seeing the last 3, Jan Siewert and Daniel Farke to Norwich, and David Wagner to Huddersfield, and we obviously know about Klopp, and then you've got Thomas Tuchel. It's a fairly extraordinary lineage there. How does the football compare to what we would have seen at that Dortmund team who reached Champions League final a number of years ago? Like, is gegenpressing just entrenched in the Dortmund DNA, or are they going about their business differently?
There's a slight difference, I would say, to what Klopp did, but there's still a high intensity to what Dortmund do. They do press up high up the pitch, as the most energetic and best teams in Germany all do. That they were a mess of a team last season in terms of you can work out the identity of them. You mentioned the great coaching lineage that we've seen at Dortmund in recent times. Last season was a complete blip. They appointed Peter Bosz after he got to the Europa League final with Ajax, losing to Man United. He was a disaster. Peter Stöger came in, who's a very pragmatic, conservative coach, doesn't suit Dortmund, just had to get them into the Champions League, and then he was off. So it seems the appointment of Lucien Favre, a man they did want at the start of last season, he was number 1 choice, has re-established what Borussia Dortmund are, and they've been an absolute joy to watch. And I think one thing they did as well, which maybe is a little bit understated, is they've shored up the centre of midfield. They had Julian Weigl, who was looked at by Guardiola for Man City's midfield, this sort of Xabi Alonso playmaker. They've got 2 robust central midfielders in there now who can score goals in Thomas Delaney and Axel Witsel, who's linked with Man United for a long time. And I think they've actually, aside from Jadon Sancho's brilliant form, they've been the key men for Dortmund.
Rob, I know you're someone who does a lot of commentaries of Spurs as well. So Dortmund Spurs in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
How will Spurs in their current predicament handle Dortmund?
Yeah, worlds collide. I think Spurs are look. The team will take a different shape by the time we get to that, because players will come back from injury for Spurs. It's been a very tough time for them. They've had. I've covered every single game this season from a Spurs point of view. Every game you have 5-6 players on that injury list, and at the moment, of course, it's the best players they've got out at the moment in Kane and Dele Alli. Son's coming back from the Asian Cup. He admitted that he was pretty tired over there and that he wasn't at his best for South Korea as they got knocked out to Qatar. So I think Spurs will be in decent shape. Look, if Kane can get back for the second leg, I'd still be having Spurs as favourites. As good as Dortmund have been, I think fundamentally it's such a settled Tottenham side that when they're all fit, they're one of the best in Europe. They really are. We just, Pochettino hasn't had that chance this season. But it's worth pointing, it's been a difficult few days for Spurs. Out in 2 cups, the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. They have 51 points from 23 games, the best ever Premier League tally at this stage. And this is with all the injuries. Yeah. And Son away. Son's missed loads of games this year because of international duty. So I'd have it pretty even, but Spurs to shade it if they can get Kane and Dele Alli back for the second leg. Okay,
and what about Bayern then? I was looking through just the list of Bundesliga winners, and really, there's never been an era of dominance quite like it in Germany. Obviously, Bayern at various points have won a couple of leagues in a row, but since 2000, they have been Bundesliga champions 13 times. It's been an all-time high for the club. So they're 6 points off. Whatever about the Bundesliga, how are things going? I mean, we're watching Niko Kovac in his first season.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a difficult season. I still don't think fundamentally he's the right coach for Bayern. A new standard was set by Pep Guardiola. Yeah. And, Niko Kovac is not in that category of super coaches that we certainly seem to have a lot of in the Premier League now. I don't know if he quite has the creativity to get the best out of players from an attacking point of view. His Frankfurt team last year, for reference, were quite an interesting team. They won the cup, beating Bayern in the final, but they were all a bit about high risk, so they wouldn't be afraid to play it like a long ball because they're big men up front. They didn't win the first knockdown. They pressed the hell out of the ball, won the second one, and we get a lot of goals in that way using high wing backs, with a back three centre-backs. Bayern don't play like that, and they're not going to play like that. So whether Niko Kovac is the right man going forward for Bayern, I don't know. If they don't win the title this season, I'd imagine he'd have to leave because, I can't remember how many Bayern have won in a row. It might be 6 or 7.
You're going back to 12, so 13 through to last season.
Yeah, you've got to win the league now. That's the minimum requirement for being Bayern manager. But the team is without question in transition, and that's why they are, a prominent force in the transfer market right now. They were conservative in the summer, but they're going big right now.
And how did they shape up for Liverpool, do you suspect, Rob?
I think it's a great tie for Liverpool, actually. I do back Liverpool to get through that. Look, Bayern have hit a good run. They weren't fabulous in the 4-1 win over Stuttgart on the weekend. But it's not a bad scoreline at all. Stuttgart have had a tough season. I think they've won 7 in a row in the league, so they seem to have found their footing in that again. And the win at Hoffenheim the other day was very impressive, actually, after the winter break. But they're still not fluent, and they weren't last year. They won the league with Heinkes coming in to try and save the campaign, but they weren't at their free-flowing best, and the team is aging. The team is aging. It's why they are playing Serge Gnabry a lot more. He looks very good. Leon Goretzka, who's come into midfield, is really starting to impress now. 3 goals in 2 games. They know they have to evolve. I'm really backing Liverpool to come through that tie. Ribery and Robben are not the force they once were.
Yeah.
They'll push Dortmund all the way in the title race, but I back Liverpool to get past them in the round of 16 in the Champions League.
How's Thomas Muller's form?
Well, he's been an odd one, Thomas Muller, really since Euro 2016.
Yeah.
When he went to that tournament and just couldn't score. Thomas Muller always scores loads of goals at World Cups and Euros, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's won the top scorer accolade, I think, at a couple of World Cups. But I think fundamentally there's a little bit of Carlo Ancelotti didn't quite know where he wanted to play him. Ancelotti actually preferred Thiago as the man behind the striker. You're never going to play Thomas Muller up front because you've got Lewandowski on the books. So then they were using him wide, and he can play a relatively free role. He's very intelligent, good at picking up space. But for me, he isn't the player that we saw, 4 or 5 years ago when he first broke through as well. For a youngish guy, I don't want to guess his age. I can't remember. I want to say in his late 20s.
Yeah.
He's played loads of football. He has played a tremendous amount of football. So I just think, he's still very good good enough for Bayern. But he's not quite
where he was. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. He's 29 years of age now, but he does feel like an old 29.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does.
Feels like he's been around forever.
Across Germany, so we mentioned Bayern's recent success and 13 times they've won since 2000. Around Germany, are there Bayern supporters who live in every town and every city, or is there a real anybody but Bayern element across the country?
No, there's a bit of that. I mean, you're going to find, you go around anywhere like Cologne or you walk around Berlin, there will be people in Bayern shirts.
Yeah, okay.
But they are the big bad wolf. They are. They're the team everyone loves to hate, and that's what winning teams are, aren't they? They've won way more Bundesliga titles than anyone else. Not like we have in England, where you've got United and Liverpool out on 20 and 18. I think they're approaching 30, way ahead of everybody. So they're in a different stratosphere.
I think they're 28 to Dortmund's. This would be their 9th if Dortmund can manage it.
There you go. Yeah, it's a big gap.
Okay, listen, thanks a million for filling us in and all that, Rob. Thanks a million.
Pleasure. Great to be on. Thank you.
Rob Daly there, who's a Bundesliga commentator, does a lot of Spurs games as well. You'll hear him in Talk Sport presenting too.